Mono white, boring, weak, not fun. We're going to explore 5 super fun mono white commanders in this episode that prove that stereotype just ain't true. Let's get it. First off, we have Nadar, Selfless Paladin, a 3/3 Dragon Knight with Vigilance that costs 2 colorless and 1 white. So this little dude has a neat ability to venture into the dungeon when it enters the battlefield or attacks. So Nadar makes a fantastic target for flicker effects, and that is the direction we are taking this deck. So there's 3 main dungeons you can work through with Nadar. Each effect is a little underwhelming until you get to the end, but by getting 1 or 2 triggers a turn with Nadar, you can fly through them and add tons of value. The fun part is picking whatever dungeon you want and taking different paths depending on the board state. Another fun dungeon mechanic is Initiative. This works a lot like Monarch, in which the last person to deal damage to you gets the initiative, but it triggers on upkeep. And Initiative lets you keep moving through the Undercity, which has enormous payoff at the end with the Throne of the Dead 3, which gets you a free hexproof baddie off the top of your library. And then here's a couple of cards that will help venture into the dungeon even more. Thorough Investigation gives you clues for more card draw and free dungeon ventures. Radiant Solar costs you 6 mana, but you're going to get a dungeon trigger each time one of your creatures ETBs, which could get absolutely silly. So next we have some really good blink cards. Ephemerate only costs 1 white mana and can blink a creature twice. Super helpful that it can be used at instant speed to save one of your creatures as well. And then Felidar Guardian and Restoration Angel both blink something with a ETB, which can definitely be abused with the next 2 cards. Teleportation Circle and Conjurer's Closet. They do pretty much the exact same thing. They let you blink a creature during your end step. Teleportation Circle is strictly better though in this deck because it's 1 mana less and can also blink an artifact. Almost every creature in this deck is going to have an ETB, including your commander Nadar, so there's always going to be a juicy target for these 2. These last 3 cards all give the initiative when they ETB. Great targets for your blink effects, and each of them also have super helpful abilities. Seasoned Dungeoneer helps you get through for more damage and explore. Both White Plume and Saravok's Tomb give you insane value once you've completed a dungeon, which is very, very easy to accomplish in this deck. Next up we have Giata. Usually we stick with more obscure commanders for these videos, but Giata is the most popular mono white commander according to EDH Rec, and for good reason. Giata is the perfect angel commander, letting you get big angels out early with the mana she generates, and making each angel bigger based on your board state. Being a 2/2 flyer with Vigilance isn't bad either. I think the funnest and most synergistic way to build Giata is leaning into the life gain synergy. So these first 3 all help you gain an insane amount of life. The Bishop gains you life on angel ETBs and makes spirit tokens. Lyra gives all your angels lifelink and a boost, and has first strike and lifelink herself. And Angel of Destiny lets you gain even more life when damaging a player, and gives you a very easily attainable alternate win condition. Once you're gaining all this life, you'll want to take advantage of it and get some payoffs. These 3 all make flying angel tokens if you gain enough life for your turn. And with Giata out, those angels are going to be huge and making each angel you cast even huger. And Battle Angels is an insane card in this deck because of its Myriad ability. Myriad makes a copy of itself, attacking each other opponent when it attacks. But with Giata on the board, those angels come in even bigger than the original Battle Angel. And if you're able to cast any other angels during the same turn, they're going to come in with at least 4 +1/+1 counters. This is absolute craziness. And then a couple extra cards that are really good in this build. Luminarch Ascension lets you pump out 4/4 angels, absolutely abusing Giata's ability. Folkiro is amazing on its own, but combined with Luminarch Ascension, you can break the game by making an angel on each player's turn, and drawing a card, and triggering Giata to make each angel bigger and bigger. You're going to be smiling ear to ear as you demolish your opponents with an army of enormous flyers. Next up we have the mono white partner pair of Yoshimaru and Kith. Yoshimaru is the goodest boy, getting bigger with each legendary permanent you play. Kith helps itself and the doggo get bigger each time you attack. The ideal build for this deck is Legendary Matters Voltron, pumping up Yoshimaru to the moon and stomping opponents out with its enormous paws. These anthems give huge boosts to your commanders and every creature in the deck, with Flowering of the White Tree also giving a super useful Ward 1, and Flaming Fist giving your commanders double strike. If your first 3 turns go Yoshimaru, and then you play Kith turn 2, and then Flaming Fist turn 3, your doggo will be likely swinging in as a 5/5 double striker, and this is just turn 3. Pretty amazing. So So these legendary artifacts provide insane value and trigger Yoshimaru when they enter. Ozolith saves all those sweet counters when your commanders get removed. Sword of the Animus lets you ramp each time you swing. And Mithril Coat can provide a fancy, indestructible harness for your goodest boy. And there's also a decent amount of legendary lands you can include as well, which will trigger Yoshimaru. Each one provides a little bit of extra value that could be the difference in a game compared to playing just a basic plains in that spot. And last up, we have a super synergistic planeswalker, Yoshimaru Kith. On each of your turns, you can use his +1 ability to give one of your commanders a counter and indestructible for the turn. This fits perfectly with what you're trying to do with this deck and lets your doggo attack with impunity. Next up, we have Gandalf the White. This is one of my favorite cards to come out of the Lord of the Rings set, and it's one of the most unique mono white cards I've ever seen. First off, it has Flash, which alone is pretty awesome and lets you most likely be able to get him out at the perfect time. Second, it gives all of your legendary and artifact spells Flash. That's absolutely broken. If you build your deck around it, basically it's a Vidalcan Ori in the command zone. Then the last ability, which is also totally broken, you get to double up all of your ETB triggers and your Leave the Battlefield triggers. This is absolute insanity. There's a couple ways you can build this deck, but I went with artifacts. I think mono white artifacts is just a super cool idea, and there's tons of cool cards you can abuse with Gandalf's abilities. First up, you gotta have these two, which discount your artifact spells so you can sling even more artifacts every turn. And then we have cards like Lambus and Ichor Wellspring, which give you tons of value for cheap, each one drawing you 2 cards when they come in, just for 2 mana, at instant speed. Ichor Wellspring can also be sacrificed later on to draw you 2 more cards. And then Sad Boy is an absolute beast in this deck, getting you 2 lands when it comes in and 2 cards when it dies. Dusk Rose can exile 2 artifacts or creatures, and you can sack something like Ichor Wellspring or Sad Boy when you cast it to get even more insane value. And then Thousand Moon Smithy lets you poop out a couple of gnome artifact creatures right away, and then can easily flip into Barracks of the Thousand. This land lets you pump out even more gnomes for free. And then these artifact deck staples let you bring back artifacts from your graveyard over and over. And with Gandalf out, you can grab 2 artifacts now instead of 1 with their die triggers. Your opponents are going to get extremely frustrated once they realize the value train just doesn't stop. And then last up, we got Krark Clan Ironworks, which lets you sack your artifacts for mana, getting all those Leave the Battlefield triggers, and giving you mana to do more broken things. All in all, Gandalf Artifacts is a fun, unique build that's going to give you tons of options to abuse these enter and leave the battlefield effects, and just straight up outvalue your opponents. Last up, we have Odger Tak Deepest Foundation. This is a 6/6 god, and he's an absolute maniac, which triples, yeah I said triples, the amount of creature tokens you make. Plus when it dies, it flips into Temple of Civilization, which adds mana and can easily flip back over to the front side. Starting off, you'll need cards that make you creature tokens. All 3 of these will passively make you tokens, and the effect is tripled with Odger Tak out. So with Felidar Retreat out, you're making 3 2/2 cats each time you play a land. And each time you attack with Hero Bladeholt, you're making a whopping 6 1/1 soldiers that each get a boost from Battle Cry. So it'd actually be 2 ones when they're attacking. Absolutely broken. And then you have spells that just make a bunch of tokens. You can only pay 4 mana with Secure the Waste to make an alarming 9 warrior creature tokens. Finale of Glory is also incredible because your tokens are going to be 2/2s with Vigilance, which makes an even more intimidating board presence. And then these next 3 have all pretty neat token making effects. Illustrious Wanderglyph makes tokens on each player's upkeep, which gets tripled if Odger Tak is out. And also if you have the City's Blessing, that would be 3 3/3 gnomes on each upkeep. Game is pretty much over unless there's a board wipe. And then Gary Clone is cool because you can just pay the squad cost once and make 3 extra clones. Then when you attack, they will each get +4 power, which is really strong. So March of the Canaanites also gives you lifelink creatures, which is great, but its last ability lets you make 3 4/3 flying demons on your upkeep if your devotion to white is 7 or greater. Really cool. And then these last 3 help with the token strategy. Mentor of the Meek draws you cards, Intangible Virtue pumps up your tokens and gives them vigilance, and then Moonshaker Cavalry is just an absolute game ender, giving your creatures flying and an enormous boost to finish out the game. So that's our list of the 5 most fun mono white commanders. Smash that subscribe button to support the channel and stay in the loop for the next most fun video, and feel free to follow us on socials as well. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.